Welcome into a special Wednesday edition of the College Football Recruiting Show. I am Emily Proud. A reminder to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. So we come to you on a Wednesday because it is a very special rankings release day. That is right, we have a brand new top 247 for the class of 2026. Our analysts will be hopping on the show in just a few to break down some of the biggest players and the best position groups, everything that you need to know about the updated 2026 rankings. You can check those out on the website right now. They are out. This is not technically a reveal, but we're going to make sure that you have all the names that you need to know. Plus, we will wrap up the show with the latest buzz from the transfer portal. When it's time to talk rankings, there's really only two people we call, and that is our Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, and National Recruiting Analyst, Cooper Petagna. Before we get rolling, guys, we always like to explain the process, why we do this, when we do this, all those things. So, Ivins, I'll start with you here. What's the significance of this latest update?
Well, Emily, the NCAA dead period is over, so college coaches are out on the road recruiting, and the soon-to-be seniors are a big focus. And you said that Chris Hummer was going to be on the show later to talk about those guys, but these colleges are also looking at the soon-to-be juniors. And if that NCAA legislation gets passed for a midsummer signing period, these kids could be signing with the schools of their choice in the next couple of months. So we came out with the initial top 100 for this class last August. That was after the freshman seasons. Well, now we got sophomore seasons. We got more game tape. Some of these kids we ranked didn't even play as freshmen. And we've also had a ton of events here over the past few months from coast to coast. So we're looking for developmental upside, guys that are going to hang near the top of the rankings. And I'm going to be honest, I feel like we did an excellent job. I feel really proud about this top 247, especially at the top of the board.
Yeah, I'm excited to reveal that on the show in just a little bit. But Coop, we talk about how these are sophomores. This is all about development. So how much more will we learn about this group of prospects before you're ready to put that final stamp in that final ranking?
We got a long way to go. You know, I think the junior evaluation period, when you think about that season, then going on to their senior season, you got 2 years of context right now that you're missing. So this, although it is a fun exercise, it's very difficult, not only for Andrew, myself, but the rest of the scouting team as we kind of put the puzzle pieces together. There's a focus really on the top 50 players in the country. Then outside of that, you're really kind of flying blind. We talk about it all the time, the importance of really projecting the athlete. That's where we are in the process. You want to see these guys really kind of develop over the next 2 years. So there's a little bit of a grace period. Obviously, you give these guys as they continue to kind of fill out, not only physically, but on the field technically as well. So we'll see their best football certainly over the next 2 years.
All right, let's show you the first grouping of players from 32 to 21. And man, we got players from all across the country, from Nevada to Virginia. Got a handful of pass catchers in this group: Davion Brown, Devin Carter, Xavier Tiller. But Andrew, you would like to highlight somebody on the other side of the ball. Who do you want to point out in this section?
Braylon Womack, the safety out of Mississippi. He's what I call a football player, and he's one of the only pure defensive back projections we have in this quote-unquote initial first round. Picked off 3 passes in the state title game as a sophomore, scored 5 times over the course of the season on special teams, elite short area quickness, competitive in coverage, and his sister was a top softball recruit. She now plays at Ole Miss, so we really like Braylon Womack.
I'm going to go with Dia Bell, quarterback out of American Heritage in Florida, the son of Raja Bell, if you remember him in the NBA, a guy that played a couple years in the association. But I love Dia Bell, 6'3.5", 215 pounds, a guy that's still developing as a quarterback, but all the physical tools are there. Really excited about this kid. Completed over 64% of his passes. You see him in the combine setting. Super live arm, can do everything from the pocket. He's a 3-level passer, so I'm really excited. You get excited about the genes, the statistical production, but I think the arrow is pointing up. He's just scratching the surface of what one day he's going to be.
Once again, if you want some more info on these guys, you can check it out at 20. We're just giving you a few names to know. Moving on now from the top 20 players to top 11, we see our first and only running back in this range in Davion Gross. A lot of defensive standouts really in this group, top linebackers and Xavier Griffin, top edge and Anthony Jones. But Andrew, what about one of the top defensive linemen?
Yeah, Elijah Golden. We were talking about, okay, trying to project these athletes. Elijah Golden, he's at IMG Academy, originally from Virginia, but as a sophomore, he played behind a pair of blue chip recruits, David Stone, who was a 5-star for us, and Jaden Jackson. Both those kids are now at Oklahoma. There wasn't a ton of snaps to go around, but to me, Elijah Golden, when I was at IMG Academy's Pro Day a few months ago, he was an instant eye catcher. We love the frame, and more importantly, his ability to bend and change direction. So we anticipate him having a big junior season. You talk with anyone at IMG Academy, they rave about Elijah Golden. Certainly a name to know, versatile defensive lineman. I think he'd be a 4-eye, a 5 technique, 3 technique. His best football's ahead of him.
We talked about developmental upside. How about Cedarian Morgan? You talk about a guy that checks that box. You think about him, over 6'3", 210 pounds, from the state of Alabama, and a guy whose mom played women's college basketball. And you think about this kid, big frame, runs well, had a really good showing at the UA camp in Nashville. This is a big physical guy that is a projection for us. You think about the raw tools, the run after catch ability, the strength at the catch point. He still needs to develop as a route runner. He's going to need some polish over the next couple of years. But you think about his ability. He's 11-1 in the 100 meter. He's a 6'2" high jumper as well. You think about the offers too. As of right now, I think he's got Central Florida, Indiana, Troy, and Alabama State, right? So this is a guy we're really high on. We think that it's going to continue to kind of fall in line with him, but really, really excited about Cedarian Morgan.
You mentioned the offers, also a good point, or good time to point out that our friend Tom Loy has a great piece up on 247sports.com rolling through a lot of these top guys and where they currently stand in their recruitments. Okay, so those are some of the top guys in the top 11, but we want to go through 1 through 10, starting with the number 10 player in the class of 2026. That is defensive lineman Jakeem Stewart. He is currently uncommitted.
I believe they call this young man Thanos, which is a great nickname. And you think about him, you got to be 6'6", 270 pounds. He's got 34-plus-inch arms. He ran 4.8, and you see him in a combine setting. He is just so explosive, dynamic. Reminds me a lot of another Louisiana native in Mason Smith, who's going to hear his name called pretty early in the NFL draft over the next few days. So this guy, in terms of what he can do on the interior, he's got all the physical traits. The environment for him in terms of player development is going to be really, really critical. But in terms of the tools, I don't think there's a better defensive lineman in the country. So arrow up for Jakeem Stewart.
Coming in at number 9, interior offensive lineman Lamar Brown. He too is uncommitted.
He's a big dancing bear. I'm not sure there's a player with better point of attack tape in America right now than Lamar Brown. Two-way guy in Coop's backyard there in the boot down there in Baton Rouge. Light on his feet, nasty punch. I think he could play all 5 spots on the offensive line. And me and Cooper were talking about this. He's a potential first-round center one day. So we love the throwing metrics you see with him. And then those two-way snaps. Tom Loy mentioned this in his story. Lamar Brown, he kind of wants to play defense. I think he's leaning more towards offense. But this is a kid that everyone in the SEC wants. It's really easy to say why. Carries that weight extremely well. I mean, he is a slim individual. And, again, super light on his feet, can recover. We're big fans of Lamar Brown.
At number 8, quarterback Jared Curtis. He is committed to Georgia.
Yeah, one of the few commitments in the top 10, joining Chris Henry Jr. But there's a lot to like about Jared Curtis. There's a reason he was one of the top player on our board in 2026 before this update. And this is a guy that fits beautifully into a Mike Bobo offense. You think about all the things that he can do. He's athletic. I love his ability to extend plays, and he can make every throw on the field. Really strong arm, plays with a lot of velocity. But I don't think he gets enough credit for the type of playmaker he is outside of the pocket as well. The other thing about him, got a 220-pound plus frame. He is super, super sturdy. So his ability to kind of shake off incoming tacklers as well is something that maybe gets a little bit overlooked. But I love the fit here. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ryan Puglisi, who's already in that quarterback room in Athens. He should fit in beautifully for Kirby Smart.
Georgia fans, going to be a long time till you see him suit up for your squad, but remember the name. At number 7, another quarterback, Ryder Lyons. He is uncommitted.
I love the moxie on this kid. He's a dynamic quarterback prospect. As a sophomore, his first year as the starter there at Folsom, which has churned out a number of notable quarterbacks over the years. He led 3 game-winning drives, all of them late in the season, all of them for some type of championship there in California. Gets the ball out fast, and I think the most impressive thing about Ryder Lyons is his accuracy on the move. He's a guy that can beat defenses with his legs. He's going to try to beat you from the pocket if that's what the play calls for. Accounted for 4,600 yards of total offense this past season, 61 total touchdowns. We've seen him throw multiple times this offseason. We love the arm, and we think he too is going to take another step forward here as the cycle progresses.
Coming in at number 6, tight end Kendra Harrison. He is currently uncommitted.
Yeah, 6'7", 240 pounds, and you think about a two-sport athlete. I mean, this guy's the definition. Averaged 21 points over 15 rebounds as a freshman. In basketball, he's got offers from Wake Forest, Florida State, Texas A&M as well. So he can get it done on the hardwood, but he can get it done on the gridiron as well. Two-way prospect in terms of both sides, offense, defense, plays tight end, can attach, detach. Love his ability as a receiver, strong at the catch point. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Darnell Washington now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So love the upside on offense, but you can't rule out playing defense either. This guy, pretty easy decision for us to put him right here at this spot.
At number 5, wide receiver Calvin Russell. He is uncommitted.
Emily, I think I said it on here a few months ago after one of the 7-on-7 tournaments down in South Florida. I think everything we saw in terms of Jeremiah Smith's recruitment could happen with Calvin Russell. A little bit different of players, but he's a perimeter target with an exceptional bounce. I mean, you're going to see him win contested catches here. He had to play some quarterback out of necessity at Miami Northwestern as a sophomore, so there really isn't a ton of wide receiver tape out there. But I think his ability to make people miss in the open field with those dynamic cuts, you're seeing it right here in this clip, is so special and so intriguing. Cooper mentioned basketball with Kendra Harrison. Well, Calvin Russell has mid-major college basketball offers as well. His mom played at Miami. He's got a ton of family that were Hurricanes. He's a guy that can get the job done as well, and we're big fans of him. I think he's going to be the top guy in South Florida.
Coming in at number 4, offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell. He is uncommitted.
Yeah, betting on the parents seems to be a good thing to do when you're projecting 2-3 years out in the future. Now, how about Jackson Cantwell's parents? Both of them Olympians in the shot put, in the disc as well. Jackson Cantwell not far behind. You see that big frame, 6'7.5", 300 pounds. He's won state in the shot put, came in second in the discus. So he is a big guy with more than functional athleticism. He can move people with ease at the point of attack. That's where that track and field background kind of shows up. I think long-term could be a left tackle in a power scheme. I think can also play the right side as well. But I love this kid, one of the cleanest prospects in the class.
The number 3 player in the class is 5-star offensive tackle Emmanuel Iheanacho. He is uncommitted.
Pound for pound, he might be the strongest player in this 2026 cycle. Massive, massive features. One school had him with 36-inch arms and big 10.5-inch hands. You see it 6'7", 340 pounds. He moves people out of the way, right? Wide splits, flat back, leg drive. He does it all. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Evan Neal just in terms of that sheer mass, who played at Alabama's now in the NFL. We really like this kid, and we keep talking about the multi-sport, but if you're going to watch anyone's basketball highlights that's maybe not Calvin Russell or Keandre Henderson, who could play at the next level, watch Emmanuel's. He's got some big man moves. He can attack the rim with some finesse, so we really like him. He's a 5-star for us in this class. We're going to eventually expand those rankings, but Emmanuel, a name to know.
A lot of hoopers in this class. I love it. The number 2 player, 5-star wide receiver Chris Henry Jr. He is the only other committed prospect in the top 10, pledged to Ohio State.
Hard to believe that Brian Hartline is going to do it again. They got Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 player in 2025. Now you get a guy like Chris Henry Jr. In 2026. So you think about what that kind of looks like, and this guy's 6'5", 205. I actually think he's bigger than 6'5", probably closer to 6'6", but kind of reminds me of Drake London, the former top 10 pick out of USC, now playing for the Atlanta Falcons. So smooth, can play outside the numbers. You can move him inside, out of the slot as well, gets in and out of breaks. He moves like a guy that's 5'11", and then you add the catch radius as well. Love his hands at the point of attack. He can climb the ladder. He's a huge red zone threat, but he can do a little bit of everything. He's a really, really special player.
The number one player in the class of 2026 is five-star quarterback Faison Brandon, who is uncommitted.
Yeah, Emily, I said it when we mentioned expanding the rankings. Faison Brandon's a kid we put in the top 100 back in August, and he had yet to start a high school game. We are glad that we had him in there because he was excellent as a sophomore at Greensboro Grimsley. Went 13-1, completing just over 68% of his passes, 36 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He's got a prototypical pocket passer size, but he's also a dual threat with tons of athleticism. You also throw in the fact that he's one of the youngest prospects we've come across in this class, and we love the long-term upside with Faison Brandon.
Yeah, not even 16 years old yet. He is 15, coming off his first year as a starter, and you said it, we have a new number one in the class of 2026. Andrew, what was it that made him that choice to put him at the top of the 2026 class?
Well, I'm going to be honest, we kind of came into it when we sat down. It was Chris Henry, Faison Brandon, which direction do we want to go? And, Cooper continued to bring up that arm. And how did we rank Faison Brandon without him ever starting a varsity game in the top 100? Really, it was the workout he put together after his freshman season heading into that sophomore year. Then we see the live bullets coming. I touched on it. He's a dual threat talent, and he'll run. He can do the RPOs, and he can beat you with his legs, but he wants to stay on schedule. He is rhythmic as a passer. He's super accurate out towards the numbers, gets the ball out fast, and then in the face of pressure, he is super poised. From a statistical standpoint, he's as clean as they come. His completion percentage, yards per attempt, interception rate, all top marks here in the 2026 class. I also mentioned he's on the younger side, and he's our first five-star quarterback out of the Tar Heel State since Drake May. Drake May is going to get selected here probably tomorrow night in the NFL draft. Different players, but they do have one thing in common, and that's the basketball background. Both Drake May, Faison Brandon, double-digit scorers on the hardwood as sophomores. So important, that multi-sport at the quarterback position, just how they react, get away from pressure. You see it this past NFL wildcard weekend, 8 of the 12 starting quarterbacks all played basketball in high school, so we love that about Faison Brandon. And we anticipate him to only continue to take steps forward. Love the developmental long-term upside with him.
I also read in a great piece from our colleague Anna Adams that this is the first time that a number one player in the class has come from Greensboro, so I know that they are very proud of him there. It'll be interesting to see his development. Sounds like haven't seen a whole lot in terms of a starter, but enough to put him as the number one prospect in the class. Coop, looking at this group as a whole, what are some positions of strength?
Yeah, I think the edge group, you can start there. We have 5 guys inside the top 32, but outside of the top 32, we got a couple guys that we're pretty excited about. And let's start with Carter Meadows out of Gonzaga there in the DMV area. And this is a guy long developmental upside. We keep saying that term, but there is a lot of clay there. I think the biggest thing is when you're doing a rankings or a rankings refresh coming out at this point, there's a lot of information and a lot of puzzle pieces you're still putting together. So Carter Meadows is one of those guys that certainly flashes on tape. We know we like him a lot. We're just waiting for the information to really kind of catch up in the evaluation process, and that in addition to getting some eyes on him from the live evaluation side as well. So you think about guys like Carter Meadows, Jarius Rogers, another guy, a verified track and field athlete, very explosive lower body, but we want to see some more on tape. Zach Groves as well, the brother of Elijah Groves, a former top 247 signee with NC State. A lot to like about him out of the state of Tennessee. And then all the way to the PNW, Derek Coleman-Brusa, a guy that Greg Biggins, Brandon Huffman, Blair Angulo all saw this weekend perform really well. So we're in the information gathering stage, but there are a lot of guys when you go down the board, really from 100 to kind of 150 that are sitting in that kind of 3rd or 4th round range right now. But as far as we see it on tape, they all have that potential to make a strong move up the board. It's just going to have to take some time. as we play the catch-up game with information, which will happen over the next 2 years.
Coop, I love this edge rusher group. I think this is the year. If you need a pass rusher, there's plenty of them. And the other group I'm super excited about, running backs. I know Emily's probably like, whoa, running backs, you guys always talk about not ranking running backs high. But we got a few in there. Right now, it's 8 inside the top 100, 15 inside the top 247, and we have a running back inside the top 32. That's Davion Gross out of the state of Texas. This is a kid that ran for over 900 yards and had 800 yards receiving. He can beat you in a variety of different ways. He is explosive, verified speed. I love his jump cuts, and I think when you're projecting long-term towards the NFL draft, everyone's going to watch tomorrow night. These running backs, you have to make people miss in tight quarters. You also have to be able to catch the ball. Davion Gross can do just that. And credit to Gabe Brooks for putting him on our radar. He has an excellent story up on 247sports.com just talking about this running back class, what it could be, and how special it is in Texas. Tadarian Bell, KJ Edwards from Gabe's alma mater, Carthage. He's also a guy we really like. So this group is special. We're super high on the running backs. It's a little bit rare. Normally we're more conservative, but all these guys have some juice, and all of them can find the end zone.
I love to hear it. See, I always ask you why there are no 5-star running backs, and then you aptly respond with how many running backs you see go in the first round of the NFL draft. Not that many. We will see a lot of quarterbacks go in the first round of the NFL draft, so I want to talk about the signal callers in this group. Ivins, I'll start with you. I mean, who are some names that we should know about?
Yeah, I mean, 4 inside of our initial 32. I think that's kind of the lead group right there. Obviously, Faison, Brandon, Ryder Lyons, Jared Curtis, and then you got Dia Bell, who Cooper mentioned. Bell isn't the only one out of the Sunshine State in this top 247. Really, really strong cycle in Central Florida. You have Brady Hart, Noah Grubbs, Will Griffin, a few other guys out there. Brady Hart, kind of hearing from Notre Dame, Ohio State, Florida, all after him. It's easy to see why. Led his team to a 2S state title this past season. He's got the prototypical frame. I call him a modern pocket passer, baseball background. Dad played in the minor leagues. You know, in sync when it comes to his arm and his legs, really like what he's able to do. And he threw over 400 passes this past season. Now, he had more games, but his offense, you got to throw the football around the yard. Will Griffin, to me, out of Tampa Jesuit, he's kind of built like Tim Tebow. He's a muscled up individual. You know, you would think, okay, dual threat talent, but he wants to stay on schedule and you know, take what the defense is going to give to him. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Sean Clifford, who was at Penn State, now with the Green Bay Packers. You know, he's a competitive individual. He's durable. He's going to take some hits. He's actually started more games than anyone else in the class of 2026. And that's because he played on varsity as an 8th grader. Finally, Noah Grubbs. This kid had 2 500-yard games this past season. Very loose arm, not afraid to take his chances. So I think in Florida, it's a great year. Dia Bell leads it off. Then you have Brady Hart, Noah Grubbs, Will Griffin. And there's some other guys out there that we're closely tracking, like Darion Coleman from Orlando Jones.
Sure, we got some West Coast guys, too. How about Brady Smeagol out of Newberry Park, 6'4", 185 pounds, big body, a little different mechanically. I don't know if I'm going to regret saying this. It kind of reminds me, play style-wise, mechanically, let me phrase it that way, a little bit of Phillip Rivers. You know, the release is kind of wonky a little bit, but he gets it there from point A to point B. You talk about a guy for 2026 has already played a lot of football games, has accounted for over 7,000 yards passing as well. So he's an interesting guy on the West Coast, but the guy that I really like, Jaden O'Neal, right there in California as well, kind of nipping at his heels. 6'2 plus, 210 pounds, stout type of frame, pretty similar to kind of Ryder Lyons, who we talked about earlier in the top 10 of the quarterback rankings. But listen, this kid, Jaden O'Neal, he can pump it. And I like everything about this kid, what he can do. 5-6, right, in terms of the win-loss record, over 60% completion rate. There are some things that he has to clean up, but the physical toolkit, there's a lot to work with. He's one of those names that's going to be a name to watch. And then South Carolina commit Landon Duckworth, bringing it back to the Southeast. I think they got something here. This kid's 6'3", 190 pounds. He's a winner. When you see him in a combine setting, it leaves a little bit to be desired. You turn on the tape, there is a lot to like. I can see why Shane Beamer, his staff, wanted to get Duckworth in the boat early, and this is a guy pretty similar to Lenora Sellers, a guy that they had committed for a while and is a guy that they're going to be counting on this year. I see the vision with Landon Duckworth, another guy that I feel if you're a Gamecock fan, you should be pretty excited about.
Thank you guys so much for getting us all excited about the class of 2026. Big shout out to you both and the great work from the rest of our scouting team, Hudson Standish, Gabe Brooks, and Greg Biggins. You guys are the best. I appreciate it. Make sure that you are listening to the 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast with those two you just heard from. Typically, you would get a new episode today, but they were so kind as to join us to reveal this top 247 for 2026. But generally, you can catch the show on Tuesdays and Wednesdays on the YouTube channel or listen wherever you get your podcasts. We are in the thick of the spring portal window. It is also a day that ends in Y, which means that we have some portal updates to bring you. And to do that, we'll bring in our portal expert, Chris Hummer. And Chris, before we get to some names and news and notes, I want to ask you about the NCAA and the new transfer portal legislation that they released. A small part of it saying now that all transfers have to be in the portal by the end of this spring portal window. By all, I mean this includes grad transfers, which is a bit of a change. So what's the impact of this new legislation?
It means that you can't have anybody jump in the portal in June and disrupt the depth chart for a team, and also teams that have needs can't count on pushing a grad transfer into the portal later than expected. So it's a pretty significant thing. This is where we were 2 years ago. The NCAA, when they introduced the windows and changed the grad transfer rules, altered this. But 2 years ago, you had to be in the transfer portal by a certain deadline. I believe at that point, it was May 31st. Now it's a little earlier. So this is a pretty significant change. It means that after May 1st, you won't really see any more new names in the transfer portal until at least the following season when grad transfers start trickling in again. So the transfer portal in college football should be quiet for at least a little bit once that's done.
Wow, that is a big change. Something that will never change, though, is Coach Prime's usage of the portal and having to track and follow all the ins and the outs when it comes with the Buffs program. They're set to have their spring game this Saturday, but per usual, the portal is all that we're talking about. So what's the latest at Colorado?
Well, it's never boring, and Deion Sanders is the head coach, and there have been some somewhat surprising names. Dylan Edwards, the running back, entered yesterday. He's somebody that was coming on our radar about entering earlier this week, and he ultimately decided to go in. And that's a pretty significant name if you know Deion Sanders' history and you know Dylan Edwards' history. Those two have known each other since Dylan Edwards was in like 5th or 6th grade. Dylan Edwards played for Deion Sanders' Pee Wee football team, essentially. The only reason Dylan Edwards flipped from Notre Dame to Colorado was because of Deion Sanders. So for him to go in the portal is a pretty significant change for Dylan Edwards in his career path. There's a lot of reasons you could point to for why he left. I've heard varying ones. He was working in the slot a lot this spring instead of just at running back. Colorado took Dalen Hayden, the running back from Ohio State, who was likely to start. There's also just been a lot of change at Colorado, depending on who you ask, and there's certainly some volatility to that roster that I think contributes to some of this movement. So it's just the continued kind of push of Deion Sanders. He overturned 80% of his roster in year one, and this time around it's going to be around 50% again. So it's just what seems to happen to Deion Sanders.
Whew, especially in the running back room. 3 since the start of the spring portal window have entered, 4 total running back, and you mentioned Hayden coming in as well, so it's been a revolving door there. We'll see where he ends up. Meanwhile, interior offensive lineman Jason Zandamela, who was from the 2024 class, USC's number 17 class, he was the top player in that group, and now he's in the portal after being an early enrollee. So where do things stand with his recruitment?
Yeah, he wasn't a Trojan for long. He was there for about 3 months before entering the transfer portal. I think the most likely thing is he stays in the nice weather. I think it's very likely he returns home to the Sunshine State and goes back to the state of Florida. That was the buzz on him as soon as he went in the portal, that he wanted to go back closer to home. He's supposed to visit UCF this upcoming weekend. But I think the team to know, kind of looming in the background of all this, is Florida. I believe people in Zandamela's camp would like him to potentially end up at Florida. I think for Florida, it just depends on if there's a spot. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Florida is actively recruiting him. I would not be surprised if Jason Sandamela ends up on a visit at Florida at some point, although who knows. UCF has been making a big moves this portal season, and they could maybe sell him on staying put this weekend. But those are the two teams to watch as of now.
All right. Meanwhile, quarterback Jaden Rashada coming from Arizona State, now in the transfer portal. Chris, it feels like he's looking for school number 3 based on everything that went down at Florida. I mean, what could be next for him?
I'd be shocked if he ended up anywhere but Georgia. I think it's heavily trending in that direction. He's on Georgia's campus right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see movement with Jaden Rashada to Georgia pretty soon. I believe, honestly, I've just put in my crystal ball for Jaden Rashada to Georgia just a minute ago, and so did Matt Zenitz. So I think it's very much trending in that direction.
Yeah, and you two definitely know what you're talking about. I've got your tweets on alert right now, and I get lots of updates from both of you. And I'm waiting to hear an update on the transfer running back and Damian Martinez. I feel like he entered a long time ago just based on how highly coveted he's been and the schools that are involved. There's currently a crystal ball in for him to land at Miami. What are you hearing?
Well, Damian Martinez had a second in-home visit with Miami just this week. And Miami has been a team that has been linked to him for a very long time, since basically the minute he walked into the portal. He has taken official visits to Arizona and Mississippi State, but his next scheduled official visit is to Miami this weekend. He canceled a visit to Kentucky. That was supposed to happen midweek. So that's a lot of kind of threads pointing towards Coral Gables, Florida. And I would be surprised if he didn't end up at Miami based on everything we're hearing at this point. There's still a lot to go. He still has to visit campus. He has to go through the process, but I would turn Miami the favorite here.
All right, and while we were on this show, some breaking news from the aforementioned Matt Zenitz. It sounds like former Penn State wide receiver Keandre Lambert-Smith is ending up at Auburn. What's your initial reaction to that news?
I think it's a nice pickup for Auburn. That is a team that desperately needed to bolster their wide receiver room. That pass game struggled a ton last year. They're going to get a boost from true freshman Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman dominated their spring game. He dominated all spring, frankly. He is going to be a factor as a true freshman. But Keandre Lambert-Smith is a proven big-bodied receiver, good route runner, is a veteran to add to that room, somebody Peyton Thorne can count on from down to down. I think he's somebody that NFL scouts view as kind of a late-round draft pick right now. So he is an NFL talent walking into Auburn. And they really need a boost in that pass game, and I think they really got one with Keandre Lambert-Smith.
I think looking at Auburn, you can agree that they, as you said, need a boost in the pass game, but they've got the good wide receivers coming in. Now Keandre Lambert-Smith is joining the group, but there were maybe some rumblings that Auburn could be a player for a quarterback in this portal window. But what are you hearing in terms of their want to add another arm or just go with Peyton Thorne?
Yeah, there were definitely some times this offseason where it looked like Auburn might take a quarterback. They kicked the tires on Cam Ward very late in his process, before he ended up declaring for the NFL draft and before he ended up removing his name from the NFL draft and going to Miami. Auburn did kind of explore that as an option. But I think after going through spring, the word around Auburn is they're very comfortable with where Peyton Thorne sits. And plus, this just isn't a really good quarterback market to have a need there. There are very few starting caliber options at the moment. So I think Auburn's pretty happy with where their room is right now.
Added another weapon to his arsenal as well to help him out. Chris, thank you for being on our show and helping us out. A lot of portal news that will officially close next week, and due to the NCAA rule that we talked about, it sounds like it will actually close the door, but there's of course still the recruitment, so we know you'll be all over it. Chris, thank you so much. You can check out more of his work on 247sports.com. It is all over the website these days with all the portal intel and analysis that you could possibly want. Plus, once again, you can check out that full 2026 Top 247. Also, make sure you like this video and subscribe on the way out. Thanks for watching.